Before we dive into today's story, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. This channel has been growing faster than I ever expected, and right now we're sitting above 2,000 subscribers. That's incredible. But I have a goal, 2,500 subscribers, and I know with your help we can get there. So if you enjoy stories like this, and if you find value in learning how to protect your legacy and your loved ones, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Alright, now let's talk about Robert's mistake. Robert was a man of deep conviction, a man whose words inspired generations, a man who built not just a fortune, but a movement. He spoke of love, unity, and justice. He believed in freedom, freedom from oppression, freedom from suffering, freedom from the systems that held people down. And yet, when his time came, the very system he spent his life fighting against took control of everything he had built. Because when he passed away, his family wasn't left with peace. Instead, they were left with confusion, conflict, and a legal battle that would last for decades. The day was May 11th, 1981. Robert passes away at just 36 years old. His death is mourned by millions. He had become the anthem for the oppressed, the soundtrack of a revolution. And though his life was cut short, his impact was undeniable. During his lifetime, he had built something incredible. His influence stretched across the globe. His estate at the time of his passing was worth an estimated $30 million, equivalent to hundreds of millions today. But there was just one problem. Robert, a man who had talked about justice, freedom, and standing up for what's right, never wrote a will. No trust, no estate plan, nothing to say who should inherit the wealth he had built, nothing to protect his loved ones from the storm that was about to come. And in that moment, his family's grief turned into something else entirely, a legal war. You see, Robert's home country followed a strict inheritance law, and when there's no will, the government decides how the fortune is divided. At first glance, it may have seemed simple. His wife, his children, surely they would receive his legacy. But nothing is ever that simple when the court is involved. His estate became tangled in a web of legal disputes. His widow fought for control. His 11 children, some from different mothers, were caught in the middle. And as the years passed, more people entered the fight. Business associates, former partners, even complete strangers, fraudsters who claimed to be his children, stepped forward, each demanding a share of his fortune. Meanwhile, his work, the very thing that defined him, was being controlled by people he never chose. Decisions were being made about his brand, his likeness, his empire, by courts, by lawyers, by outside interests. And while the legal battles stretched on for decades, one group wasn't waiting: tax collectors and attorneys. Millions of dollars were lost, not to charity, not to his family, not to the causes he fought for. Gone. Because without a plan, it wasn't his voice that mattered anymore. It was the courts. It didn't have to be this way. You see, in the years before his passing, Robert had been advised to create an estate plan. His lawyers, his advisors, they urged him to draft a will, to create a trust, to take control of his legacy, but he refused. Why? Because he believed that writing a will was a form of accepting death. He had been diagnosed with cancer years earlier. He knew his time was limited, but still, he held on to the belief that planning for his passing would somehow bring it sooner. So he did nothing, and by doing nothing, he gave up control. A man who fought for independence, for self-determination, for ownership, lost it all because he never made a plan. Robert should have known better. He had spent his life speaking out against injustice, against oppression, against the powerful taking the powerless. And yet, in death, he allowed the very system he fought against to take control of his fortune. Maybe you knew him by another name, a name that symbolized reggae, resistance, and unity, because Robert was actually Robert Nesta Marley, or as you may know him, Bob Marley. That's right, the legend himself. A man who preached about freedom, but left his family shackled in legal disputes for decades. If it could happen to him, it could happen to anyone. Bob Marley had every reason to plan ahead, but he didn't. And because of that, his family suffered. Now imagine if that were your family. What if, instead of your wishes being honored, your estate was stuck in court? What if, instead of your loved ones being protected, they were forced into legal battles? What if the people you trusted most weren't the ones making decisions about your legacy? You don't have to be a millionaire or a music legend to make a plan. You just have to care about what happens to the people you love. If you don't have a plan in place, now is the time. Not someday, now. Because no one knows what tomorrow brings. And if you don't take control of your legacy, someone else will. It doesn't matter if you have millions or just a modest estate. Without a plan, The government will decide what happens to it. And that decision may not be what you want. So don't leave your family with questions. Give them answers. Give them security. Give them a plan. Now that you know the story of Bob Marley, what's next? If you want to make sure your estate plan is set up the right way and avoid costly mistakes, book a free consultation with me, and you'll find the link in the description. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and check out my other estate planning videos. Trust me, you won't want to miss them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.